Hi folks, this is DM Grimish. I'm currently about halfway, two-thirds of the way through running Tomb of Annihilation for two different parties, and there's a topic that comes up a lot in the DM Discord for TOA, and I see it on Reddit now and then, about how people handle mapping in Tomb of Annihilation, and specifically how people handle the Hex Crawl. And so I wanted to make a hopefully somewhat quick video about how I've done it and the steps I've gone through. In no way is this the right way or the only way to do it, and it's focused primarily on running a virtual tabletop game. But I figured it'd be good to talk about. So, and I'm mostly going to focus on the cartography itself right now, not any other part of it. So the focus of this will be primarily on how I've run Tomb of Annihilation using virtual tabletops and the Hex Crawl. Specifically, the section of the game, Chapter 2, where you go from Port Nyanzaru on your way to Omu. Once you get to Omu, the Hex Crawl kind of becomes moot. But to give a little background, there's probably 24 or so locations all spread out across the subcontinent of Chult. And there's a couple of different options you can use on a virtual platform. To do this, I'm going to focus on Roll20 and then Foundry and the various approaches I've taken. So let's get right into it. There is a module on Roll20, the Tomb of Annihilation module, that has a fairly low resolution version of the map of Chult, but it has some nice features. This is the blank map with some lines I put in for record keeping. Those lines that you see are just me drawing on the map. But as you can see, this is a pretty low resolution map, and it is pretty static. Some of the items on here are tokens that can be moved, but a lot of the map can't be modified. But that said, for an out-of-the-box, here you go, I want to run it map, it's okay. There's also a player version of the map, which is a bit more flexible and kind of a good starting point, I think, for most DMs. If we go to that, this map has lots of little tiles built into it that are already synced that you can add and delete. So it's pretty handy if you just want something right off the top to work on. I think the challenge with this is this is as close as you can zoom in, and if you want to add stuff, you're going to be kind of having to use custom tokens combined with non-custom stuff. You have this zombie heat map. If I go back to the other version, you'll see that the heat map and all the skulls and crossbones and stuff, that's hard-coded into this version of the map. That can be very frustrating. I've found that it's a big topic it's a big issue in the sense that both of my parties that I run through this were using it as a way to kind of force themselves into or out of locations. So I started looking at other options, and I think the best option, if you have the time and the budget for it, is if you go to Mike Schley, MikeSchley.com. He's the artist who actually made the maps for Tomb of Annihilation, and he has various bundles of all the maps used in the game, and he also sells them in very high res. So if we go to his TOA maps, I'm not sure if it's this exact bundle or another one, but you can get, oh, well, that took me all the way out of it. He has a whole suite of maps that have high res, low res, or not high res or low res, they're all pretty high res, but he has versions of the Chult map with and without grid, with and without the heat map, with and without all of the points of interest labeled. And so if you want to run the hex crawl exactly as written in the book, I think the Tomb of Annihilation module on Roll20 is probably your best bet. There are ways to get this out and imported into other virtual tabletops if you want. I'm not going to go into depth on that. You can do the Googling for, Roll20 to X conversions. There are ways to do it, and you can figure those out on your own. Most of them are pretty easy if you have just even a little bit of knowledge on how all these platforms work. But I think what's most interesting to me and what I really want to show in this video is what I ended up doing and where I'm at right now. And I'm going to pull up Foundry. And what I did in Foundry, and my campaign switched from Roll20 to Foundry a while ago. I don't want to go into the exact laundry list of reasons why, save that I think Foundry is my personally preferred platform. But what I did in Foundry is I took Mike Schlee's highest resolution map with no features, just the grid and the map, and I went in and I added everything to this map where I wanted it, how I wanted it, with my labels. And that ended up giving me a very flexible map where I can move anything anywhere I want based on the needs of the adventure. You'll see some of my stuff like the Heart of Abtau is where it should be, Mbal is where it should be, Camp Vengeance. A lot of the initial stuff is where it should be. But it's also let me put in extra stuff, like these little pylons that are a homebrew piece I've added to the campaign. And then here for like Firefinger, I can show that there is Firefinger with the X, but the name is hidden, and I'll reveal that when I want to. I think the other very nifty piece here is by using a Fog of War module, I've taken a parchment layer and lifted it and put it over the map, so now I can really just go in with the Fog of War and very quickly choose to reveal areas to the players. And so what this looks like from a player perspective. So after that little cut, this is what the players see. They see a nice parchment effect, and as I reveal the map, they get to see what's going on that way. I'm still toying around. I'm trying to get a better parchment effect, but it's let me really both make the map my own and have a lot more control over how many little bells and whistles I want to add in. I think the other thing I love about having the super high res map is that if I go up here, I can zoom in really tight. We can have very granular content if we want it. And then all of these paths, these are my party paths. I have custom tokens in here that I lay down to show where they camped each night. I technically even have, if you can see it, a long rest token with the campfire here versus just a normal rest. That's another homebrew item. We've altered how resting works. And so I just go in and I track the adventure for each group by dropping these campsites, and I'm able to put just a lot of stuff in here. So I think, again, this is just taking that really high res map, taking half an hour to put in all of the labels and tokens that I want. But then also, if I exit out of the player version, so now I'm back to the DM version. If I go in and I go to the tokens, I have tokens here. These are all editable and movable. I can copy and paste them around. It's very simple. I can use the drawing tools to make lines as I desire on the canvas. Can also just get rid of them pretty quickly. And then I can also, if I want to move Heart of Abtau, if I want to move that title to make it a little easier to use the Fog of War, I can do that. That's also a pretty nice thing once you go to kind of full granular. Like here I have a dwarf expedition. That's something I've kind of left as a hook. I have other routes in here that are very hard to see, but they're DM notes that are hidden from everybody else. This is a caravan of merchant princes in the yellow line, and I can just drop stuff in as I want from the game. So hopefully this has shown you guys a couple different ways you can approach this. I think, as I said at the top, Roll20 has the easiest out of the box, how do I do a hex crawl? Especially if you want to run it per the book. If you want to do it without the book, I think looking at other platforms and investing a little bit into maps can give you a pretty big change in how immersive your map game can be. And like here, I've moved Omu. So again, hopefully this is helpful. And I hope you all enjoyed this kind of tour of how I've gone about this game. The third option, which I'm not going to load up on the video, would be to actually do this in something like Photoshop or GIMP, where you would have complete control over everything, and I have played with that, but that has come down to a time crunch issue. Prepping 2 groups every week, the amount of immersiveness you could get with multi-layered maps in GIMP or Photoshop would be pretty phenomenal, but it's also going to take the most time by far. So this Foundry approach with the module I'm using for fog is Simple Fog, Manual Fog of War right here. That Simple Fog module just opens up some nice options for brush size, how much opacity you want to reveal. You can also go into the settings and really tweak around. You can put in a particular image, and you have a lot of tweaking ability here, so that's pretty awesome, and I think is the best kind of overall compromise for how to make this map dynamic and engaging, but also not an incredible burden for you as a DM. So yeah, thanks. Hope this was helpful, and have fun running this campaign.